Okay, I think we're back. Not entirely sure why that actually cut out the way it did, but I think we're back. But anyway, as I was saying, uh, one of the best moments in the comics was when Vader sends this bounty hunter after the rebel that blew up the Death Star, and this rebel, he has no idea who it is or anything like that. And when Boba Fett comes back, and all he has is a name, and it's Skywalker. That's one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen, and that's the moment when Vader realizes that he does indeed still have a son. That Vader still has family. That Padme did give birth before she died, and it's one of those things where that's that moment. I think even though he was full on dark side at that point, right? I think at that point, that was when he started to get cracks in his armor. And that was the moment when he realized I could overthrow the Emperor and we could still make something of this, right? We can I have family still. And I think that was the moment Anakin started to come back in Vader when he found out that Skywalker was still alive. So it's a great moment in the comics. I absolutely adore that moment. Absolutely love it. I just God, it's so good. As far as video games go, there's only been a couple of video games, Battlefront 2, which is really the only one that had any canon stuff in it, and then Jedi Fallen Order. So I gotta say, Vader showing up in Jedi Fallen Order at the end, that was one of those things where I wasn't entirely sure if we would ever see Vader in Jedi Fallen Order, and when we did, I was like, oh, thank you, God. And he looked so great. You know what I mean? And you hear him coming before you see him. You hear the clunk, clunk, and just his presence in that game was so palpable, and it was so God, it was so tangible, and you could just feel the weight of that character being there and everything like that. It was absolutely great. I loved it. So yeah, I have to say that was my next favorite. That was my favorite moment in any video game in canon. So I hope that answers your question, man. Thanks for sending it in. I do appreciate it. Mailbag question number 2 this week comes from Hunter West. And Hunter says, "Hey, Brian, just found your podcast and love it so much. I went back and listened to some old episodes. It's awesome to see how your show has grown and evolved. And whether you realize it or not, you are building something great and it shows. Keep up the great work." Thanks for the kind words, man. I appreciate it. I was wondering if you would be willing to speak at length on the state of the fandom nowadays. I know there is a toxic aspect to it, so I would love to hear your thoughts on the matter. Be well, my friend. Thanks for the question, man. And yeah, the fandom nowadays, there's we had a moment there. You know what I mean? The fandom had some growing pains there for a little while. And yeah, it got bad for a while. I don't think that's where we're at now. Granted, there's not a lot of stuff coming out for people to be real vocal about. But I think we're at a point now where, look, it's one of two things. Either everybody's accepting of the fact, right, that Disney's screwing it up, which I feel like they did screw the sequel trilogy up. I think everybody's just come to terms with it and they don't give a shit anymore. Or everybody's legitimately turning their asses around and they're actually being somewhat accepting, I guess you could say, of other people's opinions. I don't see a lot of people arguing online like I used to. I know they still do. But yeah, you're right. For a while there was a really toxic aspect of the fan base. When you're bullying actresses off of Instagram, when you're sending messages and just vile messages to directors because they didn't make a movie the way you wanted them to, there's something wrong. There really is something wrong there. And you know, I'm very adamant when it comes to everybody is entitled to their own opinion. I don't have to agree with your opinion. I don't have to pander to you and say you're right, and you don't have to do the same thing to me. I have my opinions just as everybody else has theirs, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? If look, when Last Jedi came out, I loved Last Jedi. I really did. I still catch crap for it once in a while, but I really did like Last Jedi. When I came out of it, I came home, gave it a great review, and I stood by it. all these people saying how the trilogy was ruined and all this stuff. And I remember saying, just wait until 9 comes out, because this is the second part of the trilogy. You're not supposed to really know everything that's going on just yet. Once 9 comes out, maybe 8 will make sense. Boy, I was wrong. I was completely wrong. But I was standing by that, right, at the time. But I didn't call anybody names. The only time I called people names was because I was getting sick and tired of seeing the toxicity of the fan base, right? When that's all you saw. When you couldn't see a Star Wars comment thread without somebody trashing somebody, that's what started pissing me off. That's when I started calling names. That's when I started telling everybody to stop bitching, because it's just a movie. You know what I mean? And nowadays, it has not. Look, if you didn't like Last Jedi, that's great. That's fine. I'm sorry you didn't like it. You know what I mean? If you really like the way the new films are going, cool. I'm glad you liked it. I wish I did. But at the time, man, people were just ripping each other apart, and to a point where I remember being embarrassed to be a Star Wars fan. And it was, and for a while there, even on the podcast, I was catching so much crap of people saying, well, I was listening until you said you liked Last Jedi. I'm gone later. And honestly, I wasn't taking the bullshit. And I was fine. Deuces, adios. I don't care. Because what I'm trying to build is a community of fans that honor the fact that everybody has different opinions, because you want people with different opinions. Otherwise, what do we have to talk about? If everybody agrees on everything, what do we have to talk about? Because before you even say anything, you already know everybody's gonna be like, yep, absolutely, you're right. So what's the point of talking about anything? There's nothing wrong with disagreeing with people. You can respectfully disagree. I respectfully disagree with a lot of things that people say about Star Wars. You know, even in some of the comment threads on some of my videos, I disagree, but that's okay. You know, and we need to remember, and it doesn't just go for Star Wars fandom, it goes for the world in general. You know what I mean? Because nowadays we live in a world where everything is so polarized. It's left and right, Republican, Democrat, it's just whatever. We need to remember that we can disagree about things and not hate each other about it. You know what I'm saying? Without name calling. We can disagree about things, but everybody seems to have forgotten about that. And the Star Wars fandom, you're right, was really bad for a while. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be. I think we're kind of coming out of that curve a little bit, where it's starting to taper off a little bit, and we're all fans again. Because right now the only things coming out are comics. You know what I mean? And announcements for TV shows, which the TV Mandalorian was pretty much, I don't want to say universally loved, because I know there's some people didn't like it, but for the most part, it's loved. It's a swing and a hit for Lucasfilm. It's one of the better things they've done. You know, so I think at this point the fandom is starting to come around, and I think that that could change as soon as the films start coming out again. Like I was saying earlier about Taika Waititi doing a film, I'm already going to apologize to him, because there's no telling how bad that's going to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, he does one thing wrong and everybody's going to rip him. Kind of like Rian Johnson, right? And I know there's people out there already correcting me on this video saying, no, his name's Ruin Johnson. I get it. We all get it. We all get it, okay? You don't like a movie that came out 4 years ago. Get over it. So, when Rian Johnson did episode 8, and all of these people started jumping on him and just running him through the mud and whatnot, it was an embarrassing time for Star Wars fans. It was a horrible time to be a Star Wars fan. It was a great time because we were getting new movies, but it was a horrible. I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. It was a horrible set of circumstances where the vocal minority made the rest of the majority look horrible. You know what I mean? So when I sit here and say it was bad for a while, it may not have been as bad as what I'm even saying. It may have not been nearly that bad at all. It's just those vocal people, right? So I think we're at a point now where as soon as the films start coming out, we're going to start hearing about it again. Really, because like, think about what Rian Johnson did with Luke Skywalker. Okay, I remember when he did Last Jedi, everybody started talking about how he ruined Luke Skywalker and how he just destroyed that character, and that wasn't the Luke Skywalker that they knew from the novels, and that's not what Luke Skywalker would have done, and all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. I've got an entire video dedicated on this channel to defending that Luke Skywalker and to defend those decisions made by Rian Johnson. Now, I still don't think the sequel trilogy was worth a damn. It wasn't a trilogy at all. It was 3 standalone films. But what he decided to do with Luke Skywalker, I still stand behind. I still think that Luke Skywalker was the right move, and I think that was where they needed to take the character, because everybody talks about how Luke Skywalker is this relatable character, and he's meant to be relatable. He's the farm boy who wants to get off the farm and go see the galaxy and see what's out there. And that's relatable. Everybody wants to leave home and go see what the world is about and all this other stuff. That's relatable. Being a all-powerful Messiah, force-wielding God wizard is not relatable. That is not relatable at all. Don't get me wrong. It's badass to see that in books. To see Luke just become so powerful that he doesn't even need a lightsaber anymore. That's badass. Don't get me wrong. It looks great when it comes to sci-fi. But as far as a character that you want to relate to, you can't relate to that. That's not, I don't want to say realistic, because Star Wars isn't realistic, but it's not, if you're trying to make characters that you can relate to and you can apply certain lessons in life to, that you can learn through, that's not the character you want to learn through. You want to learn through somebody who has made mistakes in his life, who has been broken down and beaten and just destroyed mentally and came back from it. That's what people are nowadays. That's the stories you want. I'm not saying everybody wants a comeback story. That's not necessarily what Luke Skywalker was. But I feel like that was way more organic for a character development. And I know Mark Hamill didn't like it either. I get that. He's entitled to his opinion as well. He really is. But the fact that he still gave that performance everything says a lot about him. You know what I mean? But the fact that Luke got beaten down, and you start looking at different aspects of it, and that, going into hiding was really the only example that was ever set for him when you screw everything up. It makes sense when you start looking at it from Luke's point of view, when he says, well, Yoda went into hiding, Obi-Wan went into hiding, I guess I'm just going to go into hiding. Because what did Rey do in 9? She went into hiding. That was the only example that was set for her by Luke. So it makes sense that Luke would have that same mentality and just say, I'm running away from all of it. And in Force Awakens, when Han Solo sat there and told everybody, Luke ran away from everything. Nobody complained about it then. Nobody complained then that he just left the galaxy and disappeared. When they sat there and told us in 2015 that was what happened with the character. You know what I mean? And that's it. When 7 comes along, or when 8 comes along, what were we expecting him to just, okay, let's go. After everything Han said he went through, that's what we were expecting him, was just up and go. No, that's not the way it works. So I still stand by the direction that they took Luke Skywalker. I don't stand by the direction they took the sequels, though, if you get what I mean. But as far as the fandom itself goes, yeah, it's not nearly as bad as it was. But I guess we just have to wait until more films come out, because that's probably when all the self-loathing, self-righteous attention hoarders are going to be coming out of their parents' basement and just bitching about a movie again. So we'll see, I guess. But for me, I didn't like Solo. I really didn't like Rise of Skywalker. But I'm not sitting here bashing people, and I'm not sitting here telling people that they're wrong because they like those films. There's nothing wrong with liking them. I wish that I liked them. I'm jealous of you if you like them, because I wish I did. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're wrong, So, and I think more fans need to be like that. So, yeah, the fandom isn't as bad as I think it was. And I think maybe I could be wrong. Maybe it'll just get better from here, I think if Disney were to do, if they did a couple of big switch ups, I think you would see a turnaround. But until then, I what you see right now, I think, is where we're going to be riding at. I think we've tapered out. So thanks for the question, Hunter. I appreciate it. Question number 3 this week comes from Adam Price. And Adam says, hello there, Star Wars Canon Podcast. I love your channel and content. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. I think we all know at this point Hayden Christensen was supposed to be in Rise of Skywalker. Would you have been happy with his appearance at the end of the film? Personally, I would have been ecstatic to see him as Anakin Skywalker one more time. What do you think? May the Force be with you. Thanks for the question, Adam. And yeah, I think it's pretty blatantly obvious at this point that Anakin was supposed to be in the film. I think that's blatantly obvious, to be completely honest. And I think it was right there at the end when you just see Luke and Leia. I think that was it. But I want to submit something different, because there's a scene in Rise of Skywalker that I think would have made more sense with Anakin than what we got. And you know, when I just talked about it a second ago, when Rey goes back to Ahch-To and she's going to go into self-exile, and she throws the lightsaber into the fire, and it's caught by this Force ghost of Luke Skywalker. That entire scene, I get why they went with Luke Skywalker. I get why Luke Skywalker was there as a Force ghost, because that was really the Jedi that Rey could relate to, I guess, the most. It had a little bit of a history. But what if it had been Anakin Skywalker's ghost catching the saber and telling Rey that she was wrong for doing all of this, and explaining to her why she needed to go to defeat the Emperor and why she needed to bring balance back to the Force the same way he did? I think it would have made a great cameo. I think it would have been a great surprise for fans to see Anakin walk out of that. And it would have been somewhat symbiotic. And I say that, you know, she's throwing all this stuff into a flaming TIE fighter. To see Anakin's Force ghost walk out of a flaming TIE fighter with a lightsaber, catching his own lightsaber before it goes into the flames, walking out of that would have been so awesome to see. You know, and like I said, it could have been very symbolic of him coming back from the dark side and learning from his mistakes. You know what I'm saying? So I think it would have been really cool to see Anakin come back in that kind of capacity. I think we should have seen Anakin somewhere else. Now, what's crazy is seeing Anakin in Episode 9 would have actually, in my opinion, at the end of the film, kind of have been ruined, because I've seen it, and it was at the end of Return of the Jedi. And seeing Hayden Christensen come back as a Force ghost, I feel like we'd already seen it. Kind of like the Yoda battle in Episode 2 and Episodes 2 and 3 with Dooku and with Sidious. Had he not fought Dooku in Episode 2, that battle in 3 would have been awesome. But by the time he's fighting Sidious, well, we saw it last episode. We already know he can do all these flips and twirls. So it kind of, the movies kind of blew their proverbial wad at that point. But seeing Anakin at the end would have been all right. Seeing Ben Solo standing there would have been all right. Obviously, you want to see Padme or Han, and which is kind of heartbreaking. But honestly, that should have been in there. And honestly, I cannot figure out for the life of me why they decided that was something that needed to be cut. I honestly cannot figure that out at all. I have no idea why they did something like that. So, yeah, an Anakin cameo would have made a lot more sense, especially with it closing out the Skywalker saga. And since you already had Luke there and Ben, I think it would have made sense to have the entire, and especially having the Emperor there, but no Vader. Like, really, no Anakin. That kind of sucks, honestly. But yeah, I think Anakin should have been there, and I think it's something that I think we missed out on. But I still stand by it should have been Anakin talking to Rey on Ahch-To, which would have been awesome. It would have been absolutely cool to see something like that. So thanks for the question, Adam. I do appreciate it. Question number 4 this week comes from, let me find it here. Question number 4 this week comes from Noah Reed. And Noah says, Brian, huge fan here. I've listened to your show for almost a year now, and you have my ultimate respect. To find a true fan, a true Star Wars fan that doesn't put others down for their opinions is truly a rare thing. Glad to call you a fellow fan. Thank you so much for the kind words, man. I do appreciate it. He goes on to say, there's a petition going around right now to have Episode 3 remade in animation with the Clone Wars characters. Do you feel like this is something that could be really special for fans? Would love to hear your thoughts on it. Thanks for the question, Noah. Why? Why? That's look, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that as, why do we need to see that with the Clone Wars characters? And it's kind of a rhetorical question, because I'm getting ready to answer it. Why do we want to see it with Clone Wars characters? When I said it on, I think 2 episodes ago, I made the comment that now when you watch the prequel films, when you watch episodes 2 and 3, they seem like live action movies of the beginning and end of the animated Clone Wars series. Like they just went and got actors to play the live action versions of the cartoons. And we know that's not the way it went. We know that, but Clone Wars, the fact that they are doing a petition like this speaks volumes about the series of Clone Wars in and of itself. That series did such an amazing job at fleshing out Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Padme, Ahsoka, all these other characters, and their relationships with each other and with the clones. And even with the clones, seeing all these different clones that are all made from the same guy, but they all have different personalities and different traits about them, right? This speaks volumes to it. This says a lot about the show, that people really get behind this show a lot and they absolutely adore it, right? I get why people are wanting this. I get it. I totally get it. Because I have had, I don't want to say anything spoiled for me for season 7 of Clone Wars. Nothing story-wise has been spoiled for me, but I didn't even know up until 2 days ago that it was already overlapping with Revenge of the Sith, or that it was overlapping, that it did. I didn't know that up until like 2 days ago. But that's all I know, is that it overlaps with Revenge of the Sith, which I called from the beginning. If you guys go back and watch some old stuff, I called that. But the fact that it's overlapping, I get why people are wanting that now. And maybe they don't want the entire film. Maybe they do. I don't know. But certain parts of it remade with those character models. There's a generation of fans that have seen the films maybe once or twice, but they watch Clone Wars. They grew up with Clone Wars and they watch that. And those are the versions of Obi-Wan and Anakin and Padme and you know, and everything that they grew up with. You see what I'm saying? Because you know, you've got classic trilogy fans, you've got prequel fans, and now we've got Clone Wars fans, people that grew up with those versions of them. To see Revenge of the Sith remade with those and to have it go along with Clone Wars, I think would kind of be a cool thing, but what's the point to it? When we've got those characters, they've been fleshed out now. If you watch everything chronologically, you don't need it in animation. Everything is there. And like I said, I get why they want it. And yeah, it'd be really cool to see. Don't get me wrong, it'd be so cool to see. And honestly, especially if you got the voice actors back from Clone Wars to redub all the lines, right? To actually remake it with the Clone Wars cast. I think it would be kind of cool, to be honest. I still stand by, I think it'd be pointless. It would be a waste of money, because why am I going to sit and watch it animated when I can just watch it live action? I already have it. I get it because it goes along with the series. But then you start crossing this dangerous path of, well, why don't we just remake all of them in animation to where they all match? And then you start, you know, then you're trying to decide, well, you know, what about Rebels, or what about, you know, Resistance? They all have different animation styles, or, you know, are we going to remake this movie animated so it goes with that? Or, you know, once you dip your toes into that water, there's a lot more you could do. And then it turns into, why don't we get animated versions of the novels, which would be cool as hell to have? Or why don't we get animated versions of the comics, or, you know, all this other stuff. Yeah, I get why they're doing it. And yeah, it'd be kind of cool. I'd watch it. Hell yeah, I'd watch it. I'd sit down and watch Clone Wars all over again just to rewatch Revenge of the Sith in animation. And it'd be kind of cool to hear Matt Lantner and James Arnold Taylor and all of them do Revenge of the Sith. You know, the more I think about it, that would be kind of cool. You know, when I first read this mailbag question and I was formulating my answer and I was sitting down and I was deciding what I was going to say, it was a why. I don't get it why. I get why people want it, but why would it make sense? But the more I sit here and talk about it, the more I'm like, that'd be kind of cool. I think it would be it'd be really awesome. And it'd be expensive to do, but what returns would you get on it? You got to look at it from a business point of view also. For Disney, what returns are you going to get on it? Obviously, it would be on Disney Plus, so all you're getting out of it is Disney Plus revenue. And I guess you could say the same thing about Mandalorian and Cassian Andor and Obi-Wan when it all comes out, but I guess that'd be kind of cool. You know, I don't know. So, guys, let me know. What do you think? Do you think Revenge of the Sith needs to be remade in animation with the Clone Wars models, with those characters? Honestly, oh my God. You know, the more I think, I don't know. Watching Padme die from Clone Wars. Look, Revenge of the Sith is a dark Star Wars movie. The second half of that movie is dark. People dying left or Anakin killing younglings. Could you really get away with doing that in Clone Wars animation? It'd be worth watching. Oh my God, that'd be cool. I don't know. Let me know, guys. I want to hear you guys' opinions on this. Totally want to hear what you guys have to say about that. And question number 5 this week comes from, let me find it here, Alyssa Woods. And Alyssa says, "Hey, Brian, really big fan of you and your show. Hope to see you working with Lucasfilm in an official capacity someday." Oh God, don't say stuff like that. I watched your first look video from the mobile app coming out, and I'm really impressed. Cannot wait for it to be released. You should be incredibly proud. Thank you so much for the kind words. I do appreciate it. My question is, why is the whole debate whether Han shot before Greedo so important to Star Wars fans? I constantly see people arguing about it, but I guess I just don't understand the reasoning behind being upset about the changes. Looking forward to hearing what your take on the debate is. May the Force be with you always. Thanks for the question, Alyssa. And yeah, this is something that it's just, God, it goes way back. The Han Solo changes. So apparently they've changed it now. It's different again. They changed it for Disney Plus to where they basically shoot at the same time, from what I've gathered, from what I understand. Which still isn't good enough. For those of you who are younger and you don't know, you've never seen the original theatrical cut, which it's out there. You can find it on YouTube very easily. You just go watch it. In the original cut, Han Solo does not wait for Greedo to shoot him. He blows Greedo away. And when the special editions came out, they changed it to where Greedo shot and then Han shot in self-defense. Then when the DVDs came out, they changed it again. And then when the Blu-rays came out, they changed it again. And now it's on Disney Plus, and they've changed it again. The reason it's such a big deal, actually, it's funny because I was just talking about my neighbor about this last weekend. The reason it matters, and the reason that it actually is such a big deal, and there's this big debate. There is no Han shot first. It's Han shot. That's the way it should be. That's the way, if you look at the character of Han Solo, that's the way it should be. When you look at what he is in A New Hope, he's a scoundrel, smuggler. You know he's murdered people. I mean, I shouldn't say murder, but you know he's killed people. You know that he has a smuggler's code that he lives by, but that's basically it. He's out for himself. He doesn't care about anybody else except Chewie, really. And even in the Solo film, when he shoots Beckett, before Beckett has a chance to pop off a shot, he shot first. And that's a lesson that I think even carries over even into A New Hope, where if he hadn't shot him, he'd have died. You know what I mean? Han was lucky Greedo missed. Greedo is a horrible shot. You're 4 feet away from him and you couldn't hit him. That's horrible. You make stormtroopers look like Chris Kyle. Like it sucks seeing Greedo pop off a shot. It makes no sense for Greedo to pop off a shot at Han Solo. But with Han Solo shooting Greedo, just shooting him says a lot about Han and where his character path took him by the end of Return of the Jedi. He went from being this low-down scoundrel pirate to being a respectable rebellion general, married to, a senator, a princess. You know what I'm saying? To have him shoot after Greedo shoots, it doesn't really show. It shows that he was kind of the hero all along, which they still kind of pushed in Solo a little bit, which sucked. But they kind of pushed that he was the hero all along, so there was really no character development there. He just showed it more and more instead of, growing as a character. So that's basically why the debate is such a big deal. It's a character arc thing. It speaks volumes about Han Solo and where he started and where he ended up as far as the classic trilogy goes. So yeah, you've got fans online that are screaming that he shot first, that Greedo shot first, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm going to say, and I don't like it, but I'm going to say the same thing I say to everybody else who doesn't like something in canon. Disney owns it. The changes they make, it's theirs to do what they want to. Legally, Han got shot at, so he defended himself. That's the way canon goes. I don't know, because Paulo Hidalgo came out a while back and said, all we know as far as canon goes is that 2 people walked into that booth and 1 walked out. But as far as the films themselves go, Han defended himself, and that's the way it went. And it sucks. Yes, it does. I still believe Greedo should have never popped off a shot. I feel like Anakin. I feel like Han should have just barbecued him, and then that was it, right? So that's basically why there's this whole debate of Han shot first. And the fact that they changed it again, because they even changed it at one point where he moved a little bit, like an inch to the left, and the shot kind of still hit. It still would have missed, but it hit just kind of off to the side. It shows not only, it's not just a Han Solo thing either. It just shows how incompetent Jabba's bounty hunters were. If you really think it, he couldn't hit him 4 feet away. It's one of those things that, depending on what generation you talk to, is what happened. And it's kind of the same way they're kind of looking at the canon aspect of it, I think, where depending on what generation you are, depends on what really happened. You know, different people saw different things, and this person says that. It's like that movie Vantage Point. You ever seen that, where everybody saw something different and you piece it up? Anyway, but yeah, it's one of those things. So, yeah, thanks for the question, though. I do appreciate it. I hope that answered your question. And guys, let me know in the comments below, did I miss anything, or am I way off? Maybe you guys disagree with me. I don't know. Let me know. So let's get into some live chat, guys. Now, I'm going to have 2 different live chats because of the breakup in the stream, but that's okay. I've still got the live chat from the first stream pulled up here. So I'm going to go back through that one, and we're going to talk about some things that you guys wanted to talk about, and then I'll jump over to the live chat that's going now. So let's see here. Actually, I think I can pull it up on here. Let me see if it's still going to work. Yeah, looky there. It's still going to work. So we're going to go back to the top of the old live chat. I won't have the new one on here, but the old live chat. Richard J says, yo, what's going on, brother? Jamie Holbeach is watching. How's it going, brother? He says, you should do short reviews on each episode of Season 7. Siege of Mandalore is my favorite arc in the whole show. I'm still recovering emotionally from all of it. I think that's what I'm going to do. I think when Kirsty and I finally get to Season 7, I'm going to sit down and go through. I don't know if I'm going to do episode by episode, because I think it's 3 story arcs, isn't it? I think it's the Bad Batch, and then I think there's one in between somewhere, and then the Siege of Mandalore. So maybe I'll just do story arcs instead of each episode. But yeah, I'm looking for. I'll definitely sit down and actually talk about some Clone Wars and Season 7. Absolutely. Will R says, hi, what's going on, brother? Kyler Knowles is watching. Final episode of Clone Wars is pretty epic. That's what I keep hearing, man. I keep hearing that it's really, really, really good. Final arc alone is top tier Star Wars. I've been hearing that too. James, I'm going to mess your last name up. I'm sorry. James Wadulak? I'm really sorry if I messed that up. Those last episodes are fantastic and emotional. Can't wait for your review and thoughts. Just so you guys know, we are getting close. A matter of fact, when I finish this stream tonight, I think we're going to sit down and watch. Because like I said, we're on the box arc right now. We're getting ready to start the box arc, which I'm so excited to see Kirsty's point of view on that. Because all she keeps saying every time she sees Obi-Wan is, God, he's a sexy man, even in animation. So I'm curious to see how she's going to handle this arc. Darth Wint is watching. I was hoping Boba Fett would still be being slowly digested over 1,000 years. Give me Cad Bane, far better bounty hunter and character. Completely agree with you, man. I completely agree with you there. Boba Fett went out like a bitch, and I think he deserves to have stayed dead like a bitch. And Cad Bane was by far the better bounty hunter. He was a much more badass guy. The fact that he went up against the Jedi several times in Clone Wars and came out on top just says volumes about him and how resourceful he is. And he's cool, you know? He's just badass. The fact that he broke into the Jedi Temple and got away with a holocron, who else could have done that? Darth Maul says, Kyler Knowles' final arc of Clone Wars is epic, buddy. It really, really is. From what I've heard, it really, really is. Kyler says, Brian, you should post your app on Reddit so more people can see it and download it. You know, I tried doing the Reddit thing a while back. God, it was 2 years ago I tried doing the Reddit thing. And for some reason, I was having problems with Reddit where they wouldn't let me post anything. Anything I posted, they took down. They even muted me on a few threads or kicked me from a few threads just for commenting on stuff. And it's like they didn't even want me on there. So I haven't gone back to it. I might try it again, but I haven't been on Reddit in a long time, man. But that's not a bad idea. It'd be a good way to get the word out. Korean Jedi is watching. Are you clear with license issues for the app? So basically with the app, the reason I changed the name of it, I shouldn't say the reason I changed the name of it. As long as I'm not making money off of what Disney is doing, I'm good. And that's why I'm putting only the canon timeline behind a paywall. Because the only thing that I shouldn't say the only thing. The thing that I do at the podcast, the biggest thing, the biggest service, I guess you could say, that I personally am putting out there is putting it all in chronological order in a way where you can keep track of all of it. I'm trying to make money off the fact that they are releasing stuff. That is a lawsuit waiting to happen. So as long as I'm only making money off of what I'm doing and my creative content, then they really can't do anything about it. So yeah, I've been looking into it. I'm free and clear on that. Danny Sanderson's watching. Oh, what's up, my friend? Absolutely, man. What's going on? He's a big Clone Wars guy, man. Just letting you know. Kyler Knowles is watching. I hope the final arc in season hasn't been spoiled for you. The last episode for me was spoiled on YouTube the day before it came out. No, nothing's been spoiled yet. I haven't been on YouTube hardly at all because I was worried, and I stopped following a lot of Star Wars pages that I follow on Facebook because I knew that there was going to be spoilers coming out and stuff. So I've been trying to do my best to not have anything spoiled for me. Like I said, the only thing that was really spoiled for me was the fact that it is crossed over with Revenge of the Sith. That's the only thing, which I kind of already had a feeling it was going to anyway, so I'm not real worried about that. But yeah, it's so far I'm going into it fresh. Darth Went says, I don't get how Dr. Aphra comic has lasted so long. I cashed out ages ago. Baffles me how it got such a long run. You know what? I enjoy the Aphra run, but I get where you're coming from. How is Vader on its third run, and the first two runs only got to issue 25? Nothing beyond that. And Aphra is still going, and she's getting her second ongoing run. You're right. How is that even possible? I don't get it. Danny Sanderson, talking Clone Wars and not going to mention me. It's Daniel, by the way. I know who you are, buddy. Yeah, no, Danny's a big Clone Wars guy. As a matter of fact, when I start talking the new season of Clone Wars, I'm going to see if he wants to jump on with me, and we'll talk some Clone Wars. Darth Went says, Filoni isn't ready for directing a movie yet. I disagree, man. I respectfully disagree. It's the fact his episodes of Mandalorian were awesome. Everything that he's done so far with the animation aspect of it and the voice directing and everything, I think he's ready, man. I think he's at this point, I don't think anybody would trash him, even if he made mistakes. You know what I mean? I think Dave Filoni is somebody that even if he made mistakes, because I mean, think about it. Resistance wasn't well received. A lot of people didn't like Resistance, but they're still cheering him on. So if he messed something up, I think a lot of people would still rally behind him, man. I really think they would. Toto says, Filoni has proven himself time and time again, especially with the Clone Wars perfect finale and his beautiful rant in the second episode of The Mandalorian behind-the-scenes documentary. I haven't watched his rant yet. But yeah, no, I think he's completely proven himself between Clone Wars, Rebels, everything, how it just flows so perfectly together. And you know, even when you go back to Rebels, the moment I realized that he needed to be in charge of everything was halfway through season 4. It was the World Between Worlds episode where it brought everything together. How he had that plan for 2 years and set on it, and finally came full circle. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Toto says, Vader Immortal was one of the best Star Wars games of all time. I dumped a ton of time in the third episode's Lightsaber Dojo mode. I can't wait to play this thing. I absolutely cannot wait. Richard J says, looks like I'm going to have to take my beers off my PS4 then. Absolutely, man. Yeah, no, you're going to have to. Toto says, VR is truly the future. The Oculus Quest was a major breakthrough for it. Yeah, I never got an Oculus, though. Jay says, don't forget to upload your playthrough, though. Then, yeah, no, I'm probably going to live stream it, to be honest. Jay says, I'm with Kirsty on this, so I'm assuming you guys want me to dance around in my living room waving sticks around like an idiot. I can do that. Casey Barkle is watching. I heard this news, and I was like, I don't care. Would have been great to have it revealed to me in the show, though. I don't remember what exactly I was talking about at that point. I'm sorry. Toto says the second half of the second episode of the behind-the-scenes Mando series is phenomenal. Filoni's rant was amazing. See, I've only watched the first half of that episode. I'm going to have to go watch it after this. Lucas Lorendo is watching. Hello there. The abilities don't carry over. Talking about Jedi Fallen Order, I think. I made the test yesterday. Okay, so I was wondering about that. I wasn't sure, because you're growing in the Force is a big part of Jedi Fallen Order, so I was kind of curious how that was going to go. Let's see here. Toto says, I don't know anyone who isn't excited for the new Lego game. Everyone I know can't wait. The complete saga is one of the best received Star Wars games of all time. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And the fact that they're remaking all the levels from scratch with this is going to be awesome. Danny says, what were your thoughts on the cool redesign of Grievous we saw for a few short seconds? I haven't seen it yet. I have not seen it yet. And then Toto says, delete that. He hasn't seen season 7 yet. That's not really a spoiler for me because they redesigned everybody. And, you know, Obi-Wan got the gray in his hair and Anakin looks a little more like... So I assumed that Grievous was going to get a redesign. But if it looks that good, man, I'm excited. So I can't wait. Toto says Rex and Sabine have also been rumored for season 2 of Mando. That'd be awesome. In fact, I think Rex is more likely to be in the show than Boba. The THR misreported because they only saw Tamara. Oh, okay. Fair enough. Toto says Leslie Headland also got confirmed to be writing and showrunning a female-centric show for Disney+. Yeah, we talked about that in the last episode. Excited for it because it could be an Afro show, but hesitant because Headland has very extreme political views. You know what? Yeah, you're right. Like I was saying earlier, we live in a world now where everybody has an opinion about everything. And that goes for politics too. And yeah, people dump their politics into Star Wars a lot. And it's been happening a lot more lately. And honestly, that was the reason Chuck Wendig got fired from Marvel, was because of his rant on Twitter was a political thing. And he got fired completely. He was working on another comic too. I think it was it the Dark Visions, or was it something that Dark Visions took the place of? But anyway, he was working on something and he was writing a book at the time. But he got fired for that shit. And yeah, and Rebecca Roanhorse is another one that's really bad about that. Who else? There's a couple of other ones too that are really bad with the political thing. Let's see here. Toto says, I felt like Master and Apprentice was definitely Gray's weakest novel. I'm the definition of a prequel and Clone Wars fanboy, but I just found the main plot on Pajal to be kind of boring. It really was. Honestly, it kind of was. The whole thing on Pajal was just a plot device to show the growth between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Danny Sanderson says, do you think with the success of Clone Wars Season 7, do you think Disney will let Dave go back and do the Crystal Crisis, Son of Dathomir, and Dark Disciple arc? By the way, I'm currently Rise of Skywalker novel. I haven't seen Season 7 yet, but now that you said that, I'm assuming those are not in there. Son of Dathomir has already been a comic. They actually rebranded it under Marvel, I think, last year. Dark Disciple has already been made into a novel. Crystal Crisis, I'm trying to think which one that one was. I don't remember that one off the top of my head. I don't know, because they have made some comments about Clone Wars. If we like it, they're going to keep making it, but it's finished, so I don't know what they're meaning by that. So it's possible. Toto says Dave doesn't want to go back and finish those stories. He said that time and time again. It's not a Disney not letting him thing. It's him wanting to move on thing. Oh, it's a him wanting to move on thing. Okay, I can see that. Toto says, which I respect. I'd love to see the show get a proper conclusion with all the planned arcs, but I understand Dave wanting to move on. He's been doing the show for 12 years. Yeah, he really has. I think he needs to move on to something, maybe live action. I don't know. Some live action films would be all right. Juan Cheeto is watching. For me, it's the final finale of Attack of the Clones with the Imperial March and Across the Stars. So epic. Oh, favorite moment in a film. Awesome moment. Toto says, your reaction to the Vader Rogue One scene is verbatim my reaction to the Maul one in Solo. Oh, that was a good one, too. It was so nice to see Clone Wars finally get recognition in a larger medium like that. No, that was a good cameo, too. Honestly, that was my favorite part of Solo, to be honest. Let's see here. Darth Went says 1 Lost Stars, 2 Master and Apprentice, 3 Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and 4 Bloodline. I'm assuming you're ranking the Claudia Gray novels. It's a good list. Tim Peterson's watching. I watched the channel when it was the Canon Library. Awesome, man. That's awesome. God, that was so long ago. God, I go back and watch some of the older stuff now that I did, and it's cringeworthy. It's cringeworthy bad. I can't even believe that I put that stuff out there for public consumption. I can't even believe it. Let's see here. Wanjita says, in books, I love when Palpatine kills Plagueis in his novel. I haven't read the Plagueis novel, but I need to. He also says, in a TV series, it must be in Rebels when Maul and Ezra and open the holocron. That's an awesome one, too. And Ezra says twin sons, and you just knew Obi-Wan was going to be in Rebels at some point. Yeah, when Maul finds out that Kenobi is still alive, that's great. God, it's so good. Let's see here. And I guess that's when my live stream went down. Let me try something here real quick. I want to see if I can pull up my new one. I want to see if I can pull up the new live stream or the new live chat. Hang on just a second here. I'm going to see if I can get this. And I think I can. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can add it in. It's probably going to be bad, but that's okay. Hang on a second. Let me make sure I got the right one here because I don't want to drop the wrong one in. There we go. Looky there. I was able to do it. I'm kind of shocked that I was able to pull that up. Hey, there you go. A little informal. So here we go. Hey, we're back. Yeah, we are. Okay, so Kyler Knoll says, God, I hated 2018 to be a Star Wars fan. That year was bad. Yeah, no, it really was. That was a bad year to be a Star Wars fan. But it's like I said, I think it's getting better. Toto says, I still don't think you can find a Star Wars story online that's not a Star Wars specific subreddit or website that isn't toxic. Every time it shows up on movies or television, everyone's just like, I want Old Republic instead of this High Republic trash. The sequels killed Star Wars for me or something like that. Yeah, no, it's still out there. It's just, basically the only social media I ever get on is Facebook, so I'm not seeing it as badly as a lot of other people are. Toto says, I really dislike Last Jedi, but I think Rian Johnson is a fantastic director and writer. His other work is phenomenal. I just don't think he's a good fit for Star Wars. No, I see where you're coming from. But you remember when they announced Rian Johnson as a director and everybody was so excited and like, I can't wait to see what he does with Star Wars. And then he put out Last Jedi and everybody just started dragging him through the mud. It's amazing how fast that turned around. Kyler Knowles says, my personal opinion, other than Last Shot, Resistance, Heir to the Jedi, and a couple of WTF comic books, everything has been pretty good. Last Shot, Resistance, Heir to the Jedi, and a couple of I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. There's been a handful of comic books that never should have been made. Chewbacca 5-issue run, the 3PO Phantom Limb should never have been made. The Leia run was all right, but the artwork just got worse and worse and worse as it went. And it just, some of the comics were just horrible. We won't talk about Heir to the Jedi because I don't have enough time tonight to talk about Heir to the Jedi. Absolutely horrible novel, in my opinion. I know there are people out there that liked it, but Luke walking in on an alien pleasuring himself is not Star Wars to me. So which that happened in the book. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of Heir to the Jedi at all. Last Shot was crap in my opinion. Had they told Last Shot chronologically, had they told the whole story from young Han and Lando's point of view, and then they bounced and said 20 years later, and then told the rest of it, I think it would have made a lot more sense. I think it would have been a lot better, but it was just so hard keeping track of time periods when you're talking about the same characters back and forth, which even the Thrawn Alliances did that, but it was a little more bearable in Thrawn Alliances because it wasn't Thrawn and Anakin every time, it was Thrawn and Vader. With Last Shot, it was Han and Lando, Han and Lando, Han and Lando, Han and Lando. So, Last Shot, they could have fixed it had they just not done the time jump thing. Richard J says, I'm still not sure of the death, but that could just be the child in me still grieves all over again watching him fall, talking about Luke. What Luke did was the most Jedi thing that's ever been told in Star Wars ever. I completely agree. Yep, he's the work-from-home champion. Tim Peterson says, I love Star Wars as a whole. That said, I don't love everything about it. I love most of Clone Wars. I don't like the droids episodes. Oh, yeah, I forgot about those. Those are coming up. Oh, God. Where they go on an adventure. Also, the episodes with Jar Jar Binks. Yeah, I don't say the JJB word in this house. Kyler Knowles says, Luke is arguably the most relatable character in movie history. His look at the sun is a look that every person will have in their life. I completely agree with you. And that's why I always thought that Luke was more relatable as this, mortal character instead of this immortal, Jedi God figure. Richard J says, early EU novels had Luke in hiding in an orb in Coruscant, spending so much time in isolation, he roamed his dome naked with a beard, drinking hot chocolate. Luke's favorite drink courtesy of Lando. Yeah, I forgot. The Thrawn novels did make hot chocolate canon. C. Sims is watching. Hello, how's it going? Toto says, I think Anakin should have been in Rise of Skywalker in place of Han Solo. That would have been cool. That is an awesome idea, too. That Kylo scene would have hit much harder if we got to see those two interact, but with Jedi Anakin instead of Palpatine's Vader impression. That is an awesome, awesome point. That you just made a great point. I think you just won me over with that. That would have made so much more sense. Personally, for me, seeing his father again, somebody who's lost their father would give anything to see their father again. That scene, I teared up the first time I saw it, and I still can't not tear up anytime I watch it and I hear, hey kid. And I'm just like, God, I'd give anything for something like that. But narratively, yeah, it makes way more sense that it would be Anakin. However, I will say this, I'll play devil's advocate for a second. In Force Awakens, Leia does say, when Han says, if Luke couldn't reach him, what makes you think I could? And she says, Luke was a Jedi. You're his father. So maybe a Jedi wouldn't be able to reach him. Even Anakin. Maybe it did take Han Solo to do that. So I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying you're wrong. But yeah, I completely think Anakin should have been there. Richard J says, Luke can catch the saber. That sort of completes his arc. But Anakin should have joined the convo. Yes. And his ghost should have slain Palp with Rey and been struggling to hold back the lightning. I think it would have been cool to see something like that. It would have been absolutely awesome. Let's see here. Toto says, I grew up with Clone Wars more than the films. My first films were the prequels, and I loved them to death. But then I watched the original trilogy and loved it too. But I didn't become a true fan until I saw the Clone Wars. Clone Wars won a lot of people over because it really built on those relationships a lot more than what you saw in the film. Richard J says, holy Sith spit, an animated Lost Stars movie. I would die for a Lost Stars animated movie. Holy crap. I'd give both of my left testicles for that movie. Toto says, haven't read Lost Stars yet, but from what I've heard, it'd be great as an animated story. They did do a manga of it. For those of you who are into like the anime manga comic books, I know they did do a manga of it. I never picked it up. I'm not a manga guy, but I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but they did do a version of it like that. Mr. Pete Channel is 75% away to the big time. Is watching. I'm tired of all the animation changes. Just pick one and stick with it. Yeah, no kidding. Darth Went says, for me, sequel trilogy will always be part of Star Wars universe, but will never be a part of the Skywalker Saga. That's a good way to look at it. That's a really good way to look at it. Because I still say that, I don't want to even like calling it the sequel trilogy, because it's not a trilogy. It's just 3 films is all it is. When you look at those 3 films, they're just 3 standalone movies, just like Rogue One and Solo were. So yeah, I completely agree with you. Skywalker Saga ended with Return of the Jedi. Completely agree with you. Mr. P says, bye, y'all. Take it easy, good buddy. Richard J is watching. I've read every EU novel and most canon novels. Lost Stars is easily in my top 2 standalone novels. It's good. It's really, really good. Let's see here. Toto says, I think some part of Revenge of the Sith would be awesome to see in Clone Wars animation, but honestly, a lot of the dialogue isn't too great. And it'd be odd to see the Clone Wars version reading out of those lines. Yeah, I guess a little bit of it would be a little cringeworthy. Toto says, unless they change the lines altogether, which would make sense, I don't really think it'd work too well. Yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from. I can't see Matt Lanter. I know this is Attack of the Clones, so don't yell at me. I know I can't see Matt Lanter saying stuff like, I don't like sand. I can't see stuff like that. Darth Went says they should adapt certain novels like Lost Stars, Dark Disciple, Lords of the Sith into cheaper 2D animation. I know that they did start doing the novels as comic books, and the only one they ever did, and they stopped doing it right off the bat. The only one they did was the first Thrawn novel. They did a 6 or 7 issue run. That was a comic. The Thrawn comic is the adaptation of the novel. But yeah, it'd be nice if they did something like that, or even even if they did them as comic books for people who don't have time to sit down and read all the novels and whatnot. I think that'd be a good idea too. Let's see here. Richard J says Filoni would shoot down an animated episode 3. He's already gone on record by stating he doesn't want to violate George's work. That's fair too, I guess. Where was I? I think I lost where I was. Here we go. Kyler Knowles says, I don't know why people complain about Yub Nub being replaced. In my opinion, the new ending to episode 6 is a perfect ending song. Yet again, I'm only 18 and have only grown up with the special editions. So when I saw Star Wars for the first time, it was like 90, I want to say 95 or 96. They came on Sci-Fi, and my mom recorded them for me, and I wore that VHS tape out. Because, you could fit 3 movies on a tape back then. I wore them out. I wore it out. I don't even know if that tape still exists. But that version had the Yub Nub at the end of Return of the Jedi, and it still had Sebastian Shaw as Anakin Skywalker at the end before they put Hayden Christensen in. And when I remember going to see the special editions in movie theaters in 97, and I remember watching the end of that, and at first I was excited, and then I was like, why? Okay, cool. I guess. This is all right. But the problem is, and this is just my personal opinion. When you have this big celebration going on Endor, on the moon of Endor, and you hear the Yub Nub, right? The actual celebration of the Ewoks, it brings you into that celebration. Like you're actually there and you're hearing what they're hearing and you're celebrating with them. And you can actually hear the ecstasy and you can see their excitement in their body language and hear it in the music that they're playing. When you do this celebration thing at the end, which it still isn't bad, don't get me wrong. And it made sense showing all these other planets and whatnot, celebrating everything. Which, by the way, completely off topic. If you guys go back and rewatch the special edition of Return of the Jedi, at the end on Coruscant, if you watch down at the bottom, the people celebrating, they're ripping stormtroopers apart. They are bouncing stormtroopers off and ripping people apart. I never noticed it until recently. Go check it out. I swear to you, it's there. I'm not playing. But the Yub Nub really brought me into that, and really, I felt like I was there celebrating with them. You know what I mean? So, and that was when it was just 3 movies. Now that it was 6, it would kind of make sense to go back and kind of show a larger celebration of everything going on. Show Tatooine, and then later on in the Blu-ray show, Naboo and whatnot, all celebrating. They shouldn't have had the Gungans screaming, "We saw free," or whatever. So, But that's why I kind of like Yub Nub better. That's why my outro song for the podcast sounds a lot like Yub Nub. So yeah, that's there. Richard J says, Kyle, I'm 35 and I share the same opinion. I'm not disagreeing with you guys. I'm really not. It's just personally, I like the Yub Nub better. The most recent version is my favorite, with the conclusion of Naboo, the Jedi Temple, and the Senate. They weren't in the early DVD or VHS. They weren't. They put the Senate and the Temple in afterwards. You're right. Jay says, just wish they'd gave Hayden a beard and gray roots in his hair. It would have been all right, I guess. Toto says, curious what Kirsty would think of Obi-Wan's season 7 model. He's even sexier. I'm not gay. I'm not gay, but that man makes me question it. I've seen the character model for Obi-Wan though, and yeah, he's got the gray in there. I guess I'll let you guys know, I guess, when I review it, what Kirsty thought. Jay says, I don't buy Tim coming back. Oh, Tamara Morrison coming back for Boba Fett. We've all heard rumors of Rosario playing Ahsoka. I believe Tim will be Captain Rex. Oh, I see what you guys are saying now. Yeah, that could make sense too. That'd be all right. That'd be kind of cool. Richard J says, Canon Library, I've been here when your subs were still in the double digits. Yeah, man. Actually, Jay, you started, I remember, because you started following the library when I was I was coming up on my 1 year, and you actually started following the day before my birthday. I remember that. Stan is watching, Gribless, I don't even know how to pronounce that, talk about anime. I don't know if I know what you mean by that. Toto says, I've only been here for the last 2 streams, but I'm loving it so far. Definitely going to keep watching from here on out. Love how you interact with your audience for free too. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, and you know, like I said on the last stream, this wouldn't be anything without you guys. It really wouldn't. It would just be me sitting here putting videos out that nobody watches. And there's channels out there. Videos only have 1 or 2 views, you know what I mean? And yeah, they keep doing it because they love it. But you guys are, yeah, I love getting on here and because, you know, talking about stuff, you know, different stuff in Star Wars. Like earlier when you guys brought when one of you guys brought up Anakin talking to Kylo on the Death Star wreckage. That's a great idea. I never even thought about that. This is why I love talking to you guys about this stuff, you know? And to kind of touch on, you know, people having different opinions, you guys change my opinion sometimes, you know? And I like to think that maybe sometimes I would kind of show my point of view a little bit, but yeah, no, I love talking to you guys. Jay says, oh, wow, well, it's nice to have you here, T. Yeah, no, it really is. Kyler Knoll says, the one thing that pisses me off about Disney haters is that they say things like the trailer for the Old Republic games are better than the entire sequel trilogy. Yeah, no, there are people that were going to hate it going into it, whether it was good or not. There are purists, and I hate to say, and I don't want to say it that way. There are people who are so attached to the EU that came before, which I guess there's nothing wrong with. There were some good stories in there. There was some crap in there too, from what I've heard, but there was some good stuff in there, and I get why they're mad. But even if I loved the EU the way they did, I wouldn't want the movies to match that, because I want to be surprised when the movies come out. You know what I mean? I want new stuff. I don't want to see adaptations of novels. I don't want to see that. As cool as it would have been to see the Thrawn trilogy adapted to film, I wouldn't have been surprised at all. I would have known what was coming. You know what I mean? So I'm glad they went the direction they did. Toto says, George Lucas said that the droid arc from season 5, I already know where you're going with this, of the Clone Wars was his favorite. For some reason, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, every single time George Lucas says he likes something from Star Wars, it's something that everybody else hates. He loves The Phantom Menace. He loves Jar Jar Binks. He loves that droid arc in Clone Wars. For some reason, that's everybody's least favorite stuff. I'm surprised. I'm honestly surprised he hasn't come out and said, oh, Roche Tico is an amazing character. I'm honestly shocked that he hasn't come out and said that. I think he trolls people. At this point, I think he's trolling people, to be completely honest. And yeah, I forgot about that droid arc. That's coming. Oh, crap. I forgot all about that arc. Damn it. I forgot all about that arc. Toto says, do you agree that Palpatine's return, especially with a lack of explanation, ruins Anakin's arc from the first 6 films? Yes. It completely ruins everything that Anakin did. When you go back and watch Return of the Jedi now, it completely null and voids him doing what he did. It completely does. Because when you read the novelization of Rise of Skywalker now, and Danny, if you're still watching this, I don't want to ruin anything for you, so you might want to plug your ears for a second. When they explain how Palpatine survived, and it shows that he never even died in Return of the Jedi, that his spirit left his body before he hit. Anakin, his sacrifice was completely pointless. It was completely pointless. He tried. He tried, man. A for effort. A for effort. But Anakin's sacrifice was in vain. It really was. They should never have brought Palpatine back in episode 9. I get why they did it. It was to bring people back after 8. That's all it was. They never should have done it. They really shouldn't have. Had Palpatine not showed up in 9, I think it would have made a lot more sense and made the trilogy a little better. Because then, the films wouldn't have had to have relied on something like, let's just bring back the bad guy from the last 8 movies. And it just didn't make any sense to me. Let's see here. Let's see. I don't remember where I was. Let's see here. Oh, Toto says, I'd give both my left testicles to seal off Star Wars animation. What a quote. Haha. Yeah, no, that I would. God, I want that so bad. Jay says, yes, the whole Chosen One thing was remade to Rey, which kind of sucks. Kind of bummed with that, but I won't lose sleep over it. Yeah, I'm not going to lose sleep over it because I can still watch episodes 1 through 6 and be perfectly happy. You know what I mean? And just pretend like 7 through 9 never happened. Let's see here. Which I don't know why people don't have that mentality more. I don't know why. Look, we were talking about these purists earlier. These people who just really want the EU stuff. I don't know why they're mad because they still can watch their movies and read their books all they want. It's not like anybody's taking them from them. You know what I mean? Darth Went says, Mandalorian and the Clone Wars Season 7 worked because it had a plan. Movies at large didn't because there was no plan. I completely agree with you. I completely agree. Yep, that's gospel right there. Toto says, the insertion of Coruscant into Return of the Jedi confused me so much as a kid. I didn't understand what special editions were, so there I was thinking they developed these locations 16 years before the prequel trilogy. LMAO. Yeah, no, I could see that confusing some people. Matter of fact, that was the first time I'd ever seen Coruscant, and I even knew about it. I didn't even know what the name of the planet was, to be honest. I just thought it was some planet, some city planet that, I didn't even know it was the seat of government at the time. I was, 97, I was 9, 8. I was 8, actually, because they came out in summer of 97. So, yeah, I was 8 when those came out, so I didn't get it either. Jay says, Coruscant was devised in 91 by Timothy Zahn. Yes, it was. George adopted it for episode 1 and dropped the C and dropped the C to a silent C. Toto says, I agree with you saying people were ready to hate before going into canon. I was watching a streamer yesterday who was saying that Legends was far better than canon, but he'd only read Heir to the Jedi and the first Aftermath book. Oh, yeah, obviously the EU's better than canon at that point. People really haven't given canon enough of a chance. Yeah, no, look, as somebody who's... Obviously, if you've only read Heir to the Jedi and the first Aftermath, obviously the EU is better. Those, I can appreciate the first Aftermath book, but Heir to the Jedi is the worst novel I've ever read, bar none. In my opinion. It's absolutely horrible. Kyler Knoll says, I don't know why Palpatine didn't do some Voldemort stuff and not make it known that he was alive. Like in Harry Potter, Voldemort didn't just come out and say, I'm alive. Yeah, no, you're right. He didn't. Toto says, JJ's hatred. Oh, you know what? Real quick, the Palpatine thing. Why would you survive? Like, if you survived that, right? And the whole galaxy thought you were dead. 35 years later, everybody thought you were dead. And you had this massive fleet you were getting ready to hit the galaxy with. Why would you wait until 16 hours before that and let everybody know, I'm still here, come get me? Why wouldn't you just launch them? Nobody would come try to stop you, and you would take over the galaxy, you would blindside them, be like, what the hell, Palpatine's still alive? Oh, shit. Here we go again, Emperor 2.0. Why would you announce that 16 hours ahead of time? That's not a Palpatine thing. He wouldn't have done that. Anyway, sorry, I had to get that out. Toto says, JJ's hatred for the prequels and to an extent misunderstanding of them really became his downfall with the sequels, ruining Anakin, bringing Palpatine back, not even including Anakin in episode 9. Yeah, I didn't know he hated the prequels. I didn't know that was a thing, but I guess it makes sense. Jay says, Legends is split into 2 categories, pre-episode 1 and post-episode 1. George retconned the entire EU with episode 1, so the writers got together and made a 20-plus book war campaign that effectively wiped out all history. What gets me are these people that scream, they tear their clothes and they scream at the sky, George Lucas considered the EU canon. No, he didn't. He never did. And I can back that up with evidence. Yes, he took Coruscant from the Thrawn trilogy and he put that in the movies. That's awesome. But he never considered it canon. If he did, The Clone Wars we got in episodes 2 and 3 and the Clone Wars series would be completely different than what they are. Because in Timothy Zahn's trilogy, if it was canon, there were clones of Jedi in that Clone Wars. And if that was really what Lucas considered canon, then the Clone Wars we got would have been way different. So no, Lucas never considered any of that canon. I stand by that. I stand by it. Let's see here. Jay says, that way, if there was was ever a conflict in lore, it can be chalked up to a lost in history, which is basically what they've kind of done now with the Legends stuff and canon. You know, they've put the Legends title on it, where we don't know if that ever happened. But you got to remember what Ahsoka said. All legend is based off some kind of truth. So maybe all of these, because look at some of the similarities between canon and non-canon now, and some of the characters, like Kanan and Hera are a lot like Kyle Katarn and Jan Ors, if you really look at it. And look at how much Jan Erso looks like Jan Ors. Look at how much they look alike. I know one's Twi'lek and one's human. No, they're not. They're both. Yeah, I said that wrong. Hang on. Jan Erso and Jan Ors are both human, but they both look a lot alike. I'm thinking of Hera. Hera is a Twi'lek. She looks a lot like Jan Ors also. She really does. With the goggles up and everything, they really went with that design a lot. Toto says, what are your top 5 favorite Star Wars novels, both canon and legends? You always talk really highly of the Bane trilogy, so I'm curious where that'd rank up there. 5. Oh, God. So Lost Stars is my favorite canon novel. I really want to put the Bane trilogy above that, because I really, really love the Bane trilogy. I adore the Bane trilogy. I'm going to... Jeez, man, that's a good question. I'm going to put the Bane trilogy as the top 3. Lost Stars is number 4. Oh, man. And I can't even believe I'm saying this. I can, but I can't. I'm going to have to put Shadows of the Empire as number 5. Shadows of the Empire was the novel that got me into reading Star Wars books. And I loved Shadows of the Empire. You know a book is good when they start producing their own toy line. You know what I mean? Like, they were action figures based off of that. I even have an action figure of Luke Skywalker. It's a Power of the Force action figure of Luke Skywalker and an Imperial Guard outfit that looks nothing like an Imperial Guard outfit from the films. I have a Prince Shizor. Chewie with the flat top. Like, that was an amazing action figure at the time. Absolutely loved it. Jay says, Palpatine's whole return was damage control. Yes, it was. That's why it was revealed in a teaser. That is exactly it. You hit the nail on the head with that. Had they not teased Palpatine in the trailers, then they would have felt like they hadn't needed it. Yes, you're right. Palpatine was completely damage control. I completely agree with you. Toto says Palpatine's return and the whole final order was laughably bad. It really does ruin the... I'm going to feel like an idiot because I don't know what that word means. The ancillary material for that time period to an extent as well. No, it really does ruin everything else. You're right. He goes on to say, George Lucas never considered the EU canon, but he always considered whether new content he was making was already in Star Wars, character names, planet names, right. He didn't consider it canon, but he respected it. I do agree with that. I do agree with that. He did respect the fact that it was there. He did kind of want to make sure that names weren't used. You're right. He did say that in an interview one time. But yeah, he respected it, but he didn't. He never considered any of it canon, which is funny because these EU purists are like, well, there were several layers of canon. If canon is canon, so if you're saying it's canon, then it was canon, right? So and look, even the new canon's got layers in it. Even it has different aspects of canon that don't make any sense. So you can have layers of canon, but not to the extent of what because in the EU you had characters dying and then popping up 5 years later in another novel like nothing ever happened. It drove me crazy, man. And the way Chewie went out like a bitch. He really did. It pisses me off. Still thinking about that. Richard J says, do you kiss your Bane trilogy goodnight before tucking those books into bed? Maybe I do. Maybe you shouldn't judge me. Richard J says, toy line, album, and let's not forget the Nintendo 64 game. Oh my God. That game was life. I actually have that game on this PC. I bought it off Steam, And I can't stop. I love that game. I love it so damn much. It's so good. Richard J says, reportedly, Matt Smith was supposed to play the son, which was why the Mortis dagger was there. His entire performance is on the editing room floor. That is heartbreaking, because Matt Smith is one of the most amazing actors I've ever seen. And he would have made a great Palpatine. He really, really would have. Toto says, I always hated the canon hierarchy idea. What's the point of reading the novels and comics if they can be completely retconned by a film director with the wave of a hand? Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree with that. Kyler Knoll says, if I'm not mistaken, Lucas literally said that the movies was his universe and all the other stuff was a different universe. I think you're right. I think that is exactly the way he said it. It was kind of an alternate timeline kind of thing. It was kind of like what they did with Star Trek at the time, because Star Trek, I know I'm already getting yelled at for saying the T word. I know Star Trek had all these novels and everything else, but the only things that they ever really considered canon were the films and the TV shows, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's exactly kind of the stance that Lucas took with the novels and stuff. And he wanted to inspire people to write fan fiction, which is what the EU was. It was basically fan fiction. And he wanted to inspire people with that and let them play in that sandbox, but he didn't have to take any of it to heart, because Lucas, look, we all adore George Lucas. We all do. We all worship at his altar, but he is a control freak when it comes to his properties. And that's part of the reason, in my opinion, that the prequels turned out maybe not as good as they could have been. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate the prequels, but they could have been a little bit better. You know what I mean? They could have been something completely different. But what I think George Lucas did was he surrounded himself with yes men. And because, you know, when he was making the classic trilogy, nobody knew what Star Wars was. Nobody gave a damn. It was just like, oh, this director is just making the sci-fi movie. And when he came to the prequels, whenever he'd ask somebody to do something, like, yes, sir. Oh my God, George Lucas just asked me to do this. I'm going to have to do it. He surrounded himself with yes men. And so it made him basically a complete control freak when it comes to his stuff. You know what I mean? So I don't see him accepting all these other 200 and some odd novels as canon. You know what I mean? On top of his own universe. But like you said earlier, I agree that he respected it, but I don't think he took any of it seriously. Toto says, finished Most Wanted last week. Really enjoyed it, actually. Starting Queen's Shadow for now. Okay, so that'll probably be the last comment I read. I'm gonna hop off here pretty quick. We've been going for 2.5 hours already. So Most Wanted was a novel that I really didn't care for a whole lot. I really didn't care for, you know, a lot of the stuff that came out during Solo, the whole Solo run. And Most Wanted for me was really hard to get through. But Queen's Shadow, you're in for a treat with Queen's Shadow. I really, really enjoy Queen's Shadow. Actually, the ebook for Queen's Shadow is free right now. If you go onto ebooks.com, it's free right now. So I would go check it out. Seriously. It was a pleasant surprise novel that I really didn't think I was going to enjoy, but I absolutely loved it. And there's actually a prequel to it coming out in June called Queen's Peril. So I'm really looking forward to that one too. Still by E.K. Johnston. She did an amazing job with Queen's Shadow. Had a lot of fun reading Queen's Shadow. I laughed out loud several times reading Queen's Shadow. There's some really funny moments in there. You're really going to like it. So, guys, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you for bearing with me during my technical difficulty there a minute ago. That was a little bit embarrassing. I still don't even know what happened there. My whole screen just went black all of a sudden, and my feed went white, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So thank you guys for being patient during that as well. I do appreciate it. Guys, I just completely had a brain fart. I can tell it's late here because I'm really tired. But anyway, thank you guys and gals for tuning in this week. I sure appreciate it. If you're new to the podcast and you like what you hear, be sure to give me a follow on whatever app or site you're listening in on. Check out the YouTube channel for upcoming reviews, interviews, and reaction videos, as well as the Facebook page to stay up to date on what's going on with the Star Wars Canon podcast. Be sure to check out the Patreon account as well if you'd like to help support the Canon podcast. If you'd like to get a question on the podcast, like I said earlier, you can send it to StarWarsCanonPodcast@gmail.com. Send me a message on Facebook, or if you have the Anchor app, you can record a message and send it to me that way. All of those links can be found in the description of this episode. Like I said, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and as always, may the Force be with you.